Hi everyone, I'm Daniel.
I'm Holly.
And we are the host of Murd Up, a murder story podcast.
It's just me reading murder stories to Daniel that he knows nothing about.
Nothing at all.
Like Jon Snow.
So I'm just like, what? And are you serious? And a whole lot more.
It's one case per episode, and it comes out every Monday. You do not have to be a true crime fan to enjoy.
That's right, I'm not.
Yes.
But I enjoy it.
But if you are a true crime fan, that works too.
There it is, Murd Up Mondays, murduppodcast.com.
See ya.
Peace.
You are a criminal. In this setting, you can get people to do most anything, do you see? Because you don't have to lay a hand on them.
This is the story of a 30-year search by U.S. intelligence agencies to perfect mind control. Some of those engaged in that search have agreed to talk about it for the first time. One said, "I think every last one of us felt sorry to attempt this kind of thing. We knew we were crossing the line. There would be victims."
Just...
One intelligence agency tried to peel this man's mind back to reveal its deepest secrets.
Live through it. I'll live through it.
This man worked on some of these programs. He would write of his work, "It was fun, fun, fun." This is the story of the search for mind control.
Okay, I gotta get my face ready to stop giggling. I think that's kind of what happens. I start to get some muscle memory going of laughing, and I just can't let it go. And then it turns into this
laughter,
thing.
this giggle,
just this nonstop laughing. So just pull it together, Ashley. What are you doing? What are you putting on your face? What is that?
a sawzall blade.
Don't do that.
I'm sorry.
Your beautiful face, and I'm like, what?
I'm like, oh, I wonder why I have so many face problems.
I'm literally going, I hope that's a feather. It's a blade.
Nope.
It's a freaking blade.
All right, I'm putting it out of my reach, so I can't do that. Okay.
What is happening right now? Oh my god.
I don't know.
Okay. Oh, hello everybody.
Hello.
Hey, we're Creep It Real. It's Ashley.
And Shy.
So, we're back with MK Ultra, part 2.
Part 2.
I mean, I kind of don't want to end it here. I mean, we are.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future we'll cover it again.
Well, it's just there's so many. So MK Ultra is the center, right? And then there's so many spider webs of different things that just come off, and then it's like a huge web of just anything and everything. So you could go any direction with it, and you could probably do a whole podcast in itself about MK Ultra and everything it's kind of led to in its existence.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
plus, yeah, I mean, there's just I was sitting here, I've just been fretting, going, I mean, how am I gonna make sure I covered all of my bases here? And I'm like, forget it, man. I'm gonna cover as much base as I can. I'm going to third base with this one, and we'll leave the home run open for later. Because, somebody the other day said to me, are y'all going to do Bohemian Grove Part 2? And I was like, I never really thought about that before, but I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, but what, I mean,
I don't really know
what direction do you go with it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where you would go. I think Franklin would be more...
The Franklin cover-up?
Yeah.
Johnny Gosh?
Johnny Gosh and the rest of the Franklin cover-up as far as, like, what happened to everybody. Because that is something that we didn't really complete.
Right.
Whatever, I've got, like, a million ideas now of government...
conspiracies.
Yeah, to look into, so... I feel like that is a rabbit hole in itself. Okay, so, let's just start our MK Ultra stuff today with giving this quote from CIA Inspector General that was assessing the benefits of mind control research, and he said, "Precautions must be taken not only to protect operations from exposure to enemy forces, but also to conceal these activities from the American public in general. The knowledge that the agency is engaging in unethical and illicit activities would have serious repercussion in political and diplomatic circles, and would be detrimental to the accomplishment of its mission. So,
So,
yeah, while we already have gone in well into that type of behavior, just kind of acknowledgement that this wasn't something that it was like, we didn't know this was going on.
Right.
Or, you know, if they try to make a couple people the scapegoats, like it was pretty well established of what was going on here.
yeah.
Okay, so I spent a few days looking through all of the declassified sub-projects that they did.
Right.
And I know that we went over a lot of them already, but there were more that I felt like maybe we could talk about a little bit
Sure.
just to help us understand what possibly could be going on still to this day and just kind of how they work as far as how some of these sub-projects were put in place simply to be a cover for another project. And so anyway,
Right.
kind of helping you understand like the way that they work when it comes to this kind of stuff. The government, as far as leaving paper trails and disclosing all the information that they should be, I guess. So I also found it interesting that I know we covered LSD so much last time, but in these documents I read that they were also doing studies to look at the effect of LSD on the development of the nervous system by studying both the embryological development of developing embryos as well as on the mother. So that pretty much is stating that they gave LSD to pregnant women to study what the effect of the drug was on the embryo. So interesting. I didn't read that before.
There's literally no bounds to what they were doing.
Right.
No limits.
They outright, it's stated that they injected plutonium into unwitting test subjects.
Plutonium?
Multiple 18. Plutonium.
Wow.
So they were studying like radiation poisoning, and I saw that, so when these documents were declassified and Bill Clinton gave a press conference about it, because he was the president at the time, he states in the press conference that they know that they injected 18 people with unwitting people with plutonium.
That's insane.
So anyway, very interesting. Yeah. So obviously there was a lot of drugs. They were testing every drug under the sun.
Right.
Pretty much. A lot of mushrooms and stuff as well. I know we kind of touched on it, but there was Subproject 34 that was, they were studying to get magicians' secrets.
Oh, that's right.
Which is funny to hear, but I guess it kind of makes sense when you think about sleight of hand and things like that, and like teaching how to
Distraction and
yeah, exactly. So in the project's description, it says that it includes writing a manual with illustrations and techniques on mind reading. Also, the surreptitious delivery of materials, deceptive movements, and actions to cover normally prohibited activities. So basically, just how to be a sneaky bitch.
Right.
How to drug people, steal things, get things that you're not supposed to have, etc. There was another one where it was simply to establish a facility in which they could conduct these tests on unwitting participants, because they wouldn't be able to do this in normal professional establishments,
right,
because it's, not quite so, well, you would hope it wouldn't be looked upon so favorably. I mean, here's another one that says that they were studying the effect of changes in behavior due to stress to changes brought on by actual cerebral tissue loss. So I'm assuming that means that they were going in and taking out, I mean, I don't know. Am I an idiot for thinking that they're taking out cerebral tissue from the people they're doing experiments on? I mean, I don't know how else you would really interpret it.
No, that's because, well, what I was reading is they were
like lobotomy stuff.
They were talking, a lot of the public that do know about MK Ultra are just very focused on the LSD aspect and think that they were just given a bunch of drugs and stuff, which they were, but there was a lot more sinister things going on too as well. So
for sure.
Again, to bring him up, it has been compared to the experiments Joseph Mengele was doing with the Nazi Germany, trying to create essentially human zombies, humans that you could control via, different parts of the brain were implanted or, like taken out, affected, putting certain chemicals in parts of the brain. So, which, what's his face did, Dahmer would inject his victims with boiling hot water and acid, trying to turn them into sex zombies. So
gross.
Gross.
Yeah, to put it lightly. Okay. There were studies on effects of mass conversion or brainwashing, kind of like cult activity. They were studying the behavior of naturally formed groups of adolescent boys in Texas and Oklahoma as a function of group membership and environment. And which is like, okay. And then they also say that they also recruited kids that they wanted to be part of the CIA in various ways. I'm not really entirely sure, but it makes me wonder, what do you mean? But it says interest in assessing the teens for agency usage. So interesting.
I
don't know.
think they were definitely targeting probably lost youth or at-risk teens, people that don't have anything to go home to or have anything to look forward to in their future. They just know their present status is kind of dire and undesirable. So
I don't want to. I am going to kind of go off because I don't want to forget it.
Okay.
What I'm thinking after you saying that is that, you know, the adults that they targeted were generally having some sort of mental health issue or sickness or illness that was, you know, they were cancer patients,
sex workers.
Who else? Oh, just like people at bars that were intoxicated.
Yes.
So that makes sense also. Or the other part of that is like families that may actually need some sort of help in some way, or there's something going wrong with them, and then they're targeted because they manipulate them into, you know, letting their child be this
experiment,
CIA experimentee. But then, this is slightly unrelated, but I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, which is called Criminal. Of course, it's one of my favorites because it's a damn public radio one, but it's so good though. But she was covering this lady who, I think in the 30s, but I'm sure it went on for a lot of years. I just can't remember how long, where this lady was from a wealthy family. It was like back in the day where women weren't lawyers, even though she was like the first woman to ever like pass the bar exam in New York or something. I can't remember all the details about that, but regardless, her father wouldn't let her be a lawyer. She became a social worker, and she had this idea that poor people couldn't provide good homes for kids, so if she saw poor people with kids, she would steal them, essentially. The first story she said the girl looked sick, and the mother was like, she has just a cold. I'm not well. I don't have enough money to take her to the doctor for having a cold. And the lady was like, well, I can take her to our doctor for the foster care company, but she has, or company, but foster care organization, but I have to take her. You can't come because she's a foster kid. And that's the only way she'll get treatment is if she's a foster kid. So, because they provide free treatment to foster kids, supposedly. So she like took the kid. It was out for adoption.
Wow.
Like she gave it to a family. Anyway, so it's not even remotely beyond the realm of possibility that there are just situations like that could happen as well. I know that was kind of unrelated, but sort of not. You know, it just made me think about it, but, you know, go check out Criminal.
Well,
really
I wonder,
good.
too, how many kids they used that were in the system, and nobody really would miss them if they had gone missing or died, for that matter.
Right.
So, that's scary to think about.
Well, you know, in some of this reading for MK Ultra, sometimes the lines really get blurred between stuff that was specifically MK Ultra and stuff that was preceding it or preceded it in a different name change or whatever, but it's still the same thing, essentially. There was a story about a hospital. Was this in my reading? I can't remember. Or was it on that dang podcast too? It's one or the other, but that there was it was on the podcast where back in that day adopting kids wasn't looked upon favorably in any way whatsoever because people thought of foster kids as like having bad bloodlines and stuff like that. So it was very unpopular to the point where middle-aged single women would be given the opportunity to like care for these kids, but the women would most of the time require money up front before they ever watched the kids. So then once they got paid, they had no incentive to even care for the kid. And there apparently was like a foster place where there was like, they just killed everybody. There was like hundreds upon hundreds of just dead kids because nobody was adopting kids, and they were just literally nobody cared. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Anyway. Yeah. So I don't know why I keep going off on this tangent, but it reminds me of it. I probably Here's another one where they were interested in creating a method of inducing a drug-like state through the inhalation of carbon dioxide. So covertly, they could,
Right.
get you jacked up in a room without you even really noticing. They did a lot of testing on unwitting patients at VA centers. So, just good old veterans, probably going in for
A checkup.
health and mental health. Yeah, and just getting dosed up with drugs and whatever else they were doing, abusing them. Oh, so another one was that they were studying the open voting records of people over 55 years of old. 55 years of old.
55 years of old.
Age. The reason for this and the anticipated results of the study were redacted for some reason. So why, I don't know, they would redact that. What their purpose was that they don't want anyone to know, I don't
Also,
know. But I just thought that was kind of interesting.
I just thought of something.
Okay.
So you know how the Vietnam War was going on around the time this whole MK Ultra thing. I don't know where I heard it from, but I had heard that a lot of Vietnam War vets came back drug addicts and addicted to things like LSD, hallucinogenics.
Okay.
And I wonder if it was at a fault of their own, or they were given these things, testing them to see what sort of super soldiers we could turn them into.
LSD super soldiers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or like amphetamines.
I mean, there was all sorts of weird stuff they were giving them, but
yeah.
And plus, like mixing them, who knows what that would actually do? But the other aspect of that kind of testing was that they were trying to figure out how to block certain things out of these people if, in fact, they were captured
right?
as well.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that is some intense stuff. I just don't even. It's beyond me, I would say. Okay, they were studying how to rapidly hypnotically induce someone, so trying to do it as quickly as possible so that they could then do who knows what. Most of it seems like it was a traumatic abuse, so that they could break them down into doing whatever they wanted them to. They were looking up the role of avian vectors in transmission of disease, so using birds as a way to transmit diseases, which is interesting.
Bird flu.
Yeah.
Who was talking about how birds are a conspiracy? They're just government
That's like a whole thing.
security devices. Oh man, do we need to go into that someday? Birds aren't real. They're all drunk.
Oh, I just have so many birds around my house that I would be like, what are they doing? What are they doing if they're not just birds? There's a lot. Okay. Unless I just need that many watchers.
Surveillance, yeah.
I'm just so important. So they were also looking into anti-crop warfare, which, I mean, obviously, it's like one of those things where in times of war, is there really anything that is below us? You know what I mean? I feel like everyone likes to act like, oh, there's, crimes of war, and it's like you're at war.
Yeah.
And everybody's committed them. Like,
well, it's weird to me because there's laws of war, there's rules of war, whatnot, and it makes no sense to me because how do you govern something like war? I don't know.
You don't.
Crimes of war, it's just so, it's like an oxymoron.
Right. Like you're there to protect yourself and your people you're with, and if someone is threatening that, you're going to likely do whatever it takes to not have it happen versus being like, wait a second, that's a war crime, never mind. I don't think that's reasonable. So, and I'm not trying to start a fight here, but it's like, it is just the fact. It's just nobody's following any rules. It's war.
Like, what is war etiquette really?
That seems like something made up for public consumption to me. Like,
yeah,
we have rules that we all follow. Sure, I'm sure.
Right, okay, yeah.
Oh, okay. Senate hearings on the matter. They took place, and the agency itself admitted that the LSD test made little scientific sense, that monitoring agents were not qualified scientific observers, that test subjects were not accessible beyond the first hours of testing anyway because of how just totally screwed up they were from everything that they were doing. And in many of the instances, test subjects became ill for hours or days, making effective follow-up impossible. So essentially, it was absolutely pointless.
Right.
Which leads me also to later wonder, and I guess I'll do it now too, that is this even remotely a fraction of what they were really doing? This is just like, hey, take a look at what we were doing. We were giving people drugs, everybody. Like,
right.
We're wild and crazy. Yeah, no.
Like, we're not like other girls. We're quirky.
We're quirky girls.
We're quirky
We're a
girls.
quirky country. So yeah.
We're not like other governments. We're cool governments.
Yeah. Yeah. Focus on this. Like, some stuff was bad, but,
Yeah.
no. This is just something. I'll talk about it later, but I just don't think so. They also, I didn't read this before until this point. They found heroin. Here's another group of people that are vulnerable.
Right.
They found heroin addicts and they enticed them into participating. Did we already say that? In the LSD experiments, with the reward of giving them heroin afterwards.
No,
so they were like, "Hey, we'll give you heroin if you let us put so much LSD in you and sexually abuse you till you pop." It's like, oh, cool,
Okay.
I'll do it. Yeah, I want heroin. Okay, cool. Yeah, so like we talked about last episode, the extent of the experimentation on human test subjects is unknown due to the fact that in 1973, the then CIA director, Richard Helms, destroyed all of the documents. And the only reason, supposedly, that we even have any of the documents that are declassified that we do is because they were actually financial documents. And so they were sent to a separate location where the financials were handled. And when they destroyed all the documents, they left that one there. Sure, that's totally makes sense. Like, I get how that could make sense. And maybe it does make sense. But also, I just think that's convenient.
Right.
Maybe it's true. So despite persistent inquiries by Health Subcommittee and Intelligence Committee, not one single person involved in MKUltra could recall one single detail about the project, from the CIA director, Richard Helms, to the officials beneath him and any associates that were listed in the papers. Not one person could remember a single detail in order to give these people any information on what the project was. So I thought that was fairly interesting.
Well, were their lives threatened, or did they just think it was all a bad dream?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't think they thought it was a bad dream unless they were all brainwashed.
Yeah.
I think that probably they lied.
Yeah.
Unless they gave all of them a brainwashing session where they were asked a certain question or something specific scenario happened, they suddenly didn't remember anything. Because, I mean, that's supposedly what was going on here.
Right.
Do you think every employee got brainwashed? That seems like quite an undertaking.
Yeah.
You get a brainwash.
You get a
We're gonna
brainwash.
do Oprah.
Yeah.
Oprah 2 times in a row.
Oprah.
Anyway, so pretty weird. I don't know what the catch was there. I guess it's just maybe that's the way it goes whenever you work on a project like that. I don't know.
Huh. I don't know. I think maybe they were just in fear for their lives. I mean, who knows what they were threatened with, especially if they had families.
That's true.
So
yeah, well, let's move on to talking about some of the alleged and actual survivors of MKUltra.
So yes, the one that stood out to me the most was this woman called her name is Kim Noble. Her name is Kim Noble, and she's an artist, and her work is very popular, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
But
neither do I.
anyway, it was really interesting. She suffered childhood abuse as part of CIA's sub-project Monarch Butterfly. It was a smaller subset piece of MKUltra, as I stated before. It just goes off into these different webs, right? So as a result, Kim has 20 distinct personalities, including Judy, who is a bulimic teenager.
Okay.
Ken is a gay man, and there is also a mother named Patricia, which I had to laugh at. It wasn't me. That was Patricia.
I can't
It has
do.
paprika.
You don't. You need to do the accent if you're gonna do it.
She was she more proper British or? Oh, I'm chimney sweep all the way. I can't.
Let's hear chimney sweep go. Chimney sweep go at it.
Hi, miss. My name's Patricia. I'm here to sweep your chimney.
Okay. I think you've lost it just a little bit.
I need to do it more.
Yeah.
So each personality has a completely different painting style, ranging from abstract, realism, and just whatever other style of painting that personality has. Some of them are very, very complex. Like she did the, what was it, Kabbalah flower of life or something.
Okay.
Anyway, it was really, really pretty. And she's never really studied Kabbalah, she says.
Okay.
But I guess the painting was extremely accurate to what it should have represented, which is interesting. So her personalities began painting as an outlet for what she herself, Kim Noble, had suffered. So the paintings are actually really disturbing. Most of them are. They depict a lot of small figures, which would be children, undergoing torture and abuse by bigger figures, which are adults. And a lot of the children have what look like shadows or projections of themselves on like the opposite side of the wall floating, which would represent the disassociated alter personality, which was the entire goal of Project Monarch Butterfly, was to abuse these people, and especially children, so terribly that they would develop these different personalities.
Mm-hmm. I have to say that we don't have declassified documents of Project Monarch.
Yeah.
What is it? Monarch Butterfly?
Monarch Butterfly, yeah.
Okay. But there are a lot of people who do claim to be victims of it.
Right. Do you have any survivors?
I do. There was a lady named Phyllis Goldberg who at 19 years old was admitted to Allen Memorial Institution in 1945. She was to be treated for a mild bout of depression, but ended up spending 20 years institutionalized, and she gradually began to lose the ability to perform tasks and interact with her family. She would flinch when she was touched, when she would come and visit them on the weekends, and they later found out that she underwent severe electroshock therapy to the point where she devolved into an infant state until she died in 2011. So,
wow. Well, we talked about another lady, very similar, right? She underwent over 100 shock therapy treatments while in a drug-induced coma, and her brain reverted back to infancy too as well.
Yeah. So in a lot of these, it seems like they would take sometimes people who were just in for some very mild things, and then they would be like,
right.
You're crazy, but they would they induced trauma to the point where they were trying to break them down to the point where they could create multiple personalities and use them for various tasks, I guess, which
right.
is truly horrifying to think that that's even possible. There was also a lady named Nancy Layton who was a teenager hospitalized for mild depression. Her daughter says that it ruined her life. Within 6 years of the so-called quote-unquote treatment by Dr. Cameron, she turned into an acute schizophrenic. There was, in May of 2018, a family of MKUltra survivors gathered in Montreal to share stories and evidence as they plan to file a class action lawsuit against the provincial and the federal governments and possibly McGill University, where their family members had been tested on.
Is this the one where they just settled for like $80,000 each?
I think so, yes. It's kind of weird the way that the laws are, I guess, about it. And many of these people are denied financial compensation because they can't prove that the psychological damage that their family member endured was directly linked to his experiments, which is, you're being a dick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure
okay.
it has nothing to do with sexual abuse whilst being drugged and shocked and kept
frying
for
your
days
brain
on end and
multiple
not
times a day,
torturing you constantly. Yeah,
pumping
nothing
you
at
full
all.
of drugs. I don't know.
Raping you.
Weird.
There's also this lady named Carol Rutz. She wrote a book called A Nation Betrayed, where she talks about being a survivor of the Bluebird Artichoke program and MKUltra. She says that her mind control experimentation began when she was 4 years old, and through a series of FOIA requests to various departments of the government, she has amassed an incredible amount of material that validates her personal experiences. She claims that the CIA bought her from her grandfather whenever she was a 4-year-old in 1952. So now I will say it again. We can't prove this. There's like a former FBI agent, I believe, who has toured with this lady to give speeches or something, or talks, who claims that he has looked into, I forget his name now, but that he's looked into all of this extensively. He has experience with certain things and having been exposed to certain projects when he was working with the government. And he claims she's valid. Of course, who knows? But you know, it's one of those things where
Do you have memories from when you were 4 years old? I don't think I.
maybe like little flashes
I don't think I do.
of things. No, and it goes on further than when she was 4, but she says it started when she was 4.
Huh.
So she says that for 12 years, starting in 1952, she was tested, trained, and used in various ways. She had shock therapy, drugs, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and other types of trauma that were used to make her compliant and split her personalities up.
Yep.
She says CIA personnel was not opposed to working with ex-Nazi doctors who had been proven to be proficient in breaking the mind and rebuilding it. As we already know, sort of, we haven't actually covered it, but we probably will. But in Paperclip, we were bringing these doctors. So yeah, I totally believe. She's claiming even, I think, that the doctors used code names that were colors and that Joseph Mengele was one of these doctors that they called Dr. Green based off of photos.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was reading that. That's what his AKA was.
Yeah. And she says there was a Dr. Green that treated me, da-da-da.
That's scary.
If this is true.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this too. There were 2 survivors, Claudia Mullen and Chris DiNicola, who testified before the President's Advisory Committee on Human Radiation Experiments, that kind of like I was talking about how they injected people with plutonium. And they did this in March of 95, and they identified a Dr. Green. And Claudia Mullen identified Dr. Green as an alias used by Dr. L. Wilson Green, technical director of the U.S. Army Chemical and Radiological Laboratories. So she says that this Dr. Green used electroshock in conjunction with other forms of torture and drugs to program her from an early age. And some people say that Dr. Ewan Cameron went by the alias Dr. White. So who knows who's what. But these people actually testified in front of the President's Advisory Committee. So I don't think that they would go to such extents to say that if they were lying.
Right.
Okay, so what is this lady's name? Carol. So she says that while she started looking into these FOIA documents, that she started to realize these things were clicking with her. So what she read that really started to make her think that she had been part of this experiment was that learning studies will be instituted in which the subject will be rewarded or punished for his overall performance and reinforced in various ways by being told whether he was right, by being told what the target was with electroshock, etc. And then it says, in other cases, drugs and psychological tricks will be used to modify his attitudes. The experimenters will be particularly interested in dissociative states, and an attempt will be made to induce a number of states of this kind using hypnosis. So that's in the documents. That part is.
Okay.
And so anyway, so she's like, I relate to this extremely, and claims that she was part of this, and obviously that she spent multiple decades deprogramming herself from this programming that she went through.
Which amazes me. I don't
if it's
see
real.
how you could, but yeah, if it's real.
Like something that she said was like, how many people are out there just waiting to be set off? I don't know if we can start thinking like that, because then, you know.
Well, there was one that I found really interesting, and I am not going to say he was a victim of it because it kind of happened a long time after this whole MK Ultra thing, but you just never know how long they've been doing this. So Theodore J. Kaczynski, aka the Unabomber, he was attending Harvard, which I did not know he went there, where he ostensibly signed up for research involving academic criticism. However, he spent weeks undergoing de-integration for many hours a day. So the goal was to see how much a person can handle being put under scrutiny by their intellectual superiors. And then it's interesting because he, at his trial, I guess, he was kind of bragging about how many murder charges he had against him, and that was like his ultimate reward at the end of the day or whatever. So they're trying to say something was ingrained in him. He was essentially like a sleeper cell, and something happened that set him off, and that's when he went and did the whole bombing. But who knows?
Who knows?
He was probably just an angry boy.
Maybe so.
But still interesting that they are blaming this sort of, I wouldn't call this mental torture for sure.
Yeah.
But who knows what else he was what else was happening. So.
Oh, to Kaczynski?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I was like, they were torturing for sure, but maybe not him. There were 4 prisoners in an Atlanta federal 4 prisoners in an Atlanta federal penitentiary who had gotten a lawyer and were going to be suing this CIA, I guess. I mean,
How do you sue the CIA? That's insane to me. It's hard enough to
suing the
sue
federal government, I guess.
a person. Yeah.
Yeah, technically what it is. So there's a man named Farrell E. Kirk. He said he was used as a chemical mixing bowl, even though, and actually likely because he was a mentally unstable individual.
Oh, okay.
And he said after being dosed to the gills, I said that. He didn't say that. I'm sure he didn't. He attempted suicide twice, once by hanging, another time by burning, and he also tried to chew his arm off.
Wow, okay.
After this testing. There's a man named Don Roderick Scott who suffered permanent brain damage from the testing. Another man named John R. Mayle and James T. Knight who all suffered long-standing side effects from the testing that they underwent without their participation really being a choice at the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary.
Yes.
And there's one more that I wrote about, which was Ellen Atkin, who she's a photo that you can actually see online, which we'll post with this episode. Because there's a picture of her in her class photo, and then there's a picture of her with some serious gear on, some testing gear.
Oh, is that the one I sent you? She has like the chin strap and then
Yeah.
everything, like a bunch of stuff hooked up to her head.
Yeah. So she says that this is my grade 2 class photo on the right. The girl in the bed is me. My mother was Emma Jane Kruniken. She was in the sleep therapy program in Montreal in the 50s. My father, John Atkin, was also a subject of MK Ultra.
Wow.
My brother, Michael Atkin, died when he was 19. My sister is heavily medicated after going insane in the 80s. So that's what this lady is claiming, if that's in fact her.
Okay.
That picture, so which we'll post on our Instagram. And there's so many other ones, but also, I mean, we included some that you can't really verify as 100%.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, obviously, these people, a lot of them would be discredited in some way, so I don't want to be a total asshole and just be like, you're lying.
Well, look at Bohemian Grove and how, like, is this real life? And a lot of people probably wouldn't believe any of that, but who makes this stuff up, honestly?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's hard to put anything past them, you know?
Yeah.
So, who knows? But so I would like to at least give some of these people some benefit of the doubt.
Right.
That perhaps, I mean, that kind of sounds terrible. Like, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that you were tortured. Yeah. So, there was actually a couple more. There is another lady named Elisa E. She has written 2 books called Our Life Beyond MK Ultra. She claims to be a survivor. Says she was a victim of abuse from an early age and was chosen because of that. Ken Kesey, I think that's right, is the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which
okay.
I saw the movie, but I didn't read the book. But he was at Stanford University and he signed up for LSD experimentation, but he didn't know it was with the CIA.
Why would you follow? I don't know. Whatever your intentions
Free
were.
drugs, I guess.
I guess,
don't know.
yeah.
I'm like, I'd rather, if I was going to get free drugs, I would rather be able to do it in my own setting than your setting at the hospital.
Seriously.
Or at the school or wherever the heck. Then there's also a deputy U.S. Marshal and former Marine named Wayne Ritchie. He was unknowingly dosed at a holiday party. He ended up then robbing a bar and was forced to resign from his position as a U.S. Marshal and begin to be a house painter. And only found out 40 years later about the experiments, and because he didn't know, I was like, how confusing would that be to think you just like lost your shit one night and you have no idea why.
Why or how?
I was at a holiday party, and then next thing I know, I'm robbing a bar. 40 years later, you're like, oh, I was actually drugged at the CIA holiday Christmas party this year.
Because, I mean, I can see you getting drunk and doing something stupid, but that's usually you jumping off the roof and your friends egging you on, but I don't think you...
that would end up with you, like, broken legs or something.
Right. But I think going and robbing a bar is...
Which is worse.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, okay. Maybe the bar.
I don't know.
So anyway, yeah, I just think that's kind of bizarre that they just gave it to people. I don't know. They're like, let's play a joke on the deputy U.S. Marshal,
right?
And give him LSD and
ruin his life.
Holiday eggnog. Yeah. Woo-hoo.
Ugh.
Okay, so is this stuff really over? Did they really end it in the 70s whenever they say they ended it? Or is this still going on to this day?
Well, I think it's going to be people drawing to their own conclusions with it, whether or not they believe in government programming. We've talked about the whole Instagram, Facebook thing, but it's probably been happening a lot further back than that.
Well, yeah.
So
It definitely has been. So there are government documents from as recent as 2006 detailing the protocol for bypassing human consent for, quote unquote, the Undersecretary of the Navy is the approval authority for research involving severe or unusual intrusions, either physical or psychological, on human subjects, such as consciousness-altering drugs or mind control techniques. So that's the Navy. And that's according to Daily Kos. That's an article that was posted. I have a link that I can post up.
So this is like a way and a loophole for them to do things to you without your consent, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So,
right.
okay.
Well, this type of testing is still being
Done.
approved of in certain circumstances as recently as 2006.
Okay. So they could say something like, oh, we believe so-and-so's a threat to the nation.
Mm-hmm.
We got to do this, and that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to tell them about it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and that's just them talking to themselves because they're the authority of it, so they don't have to ask anybody. So they're just like, oh, hey, let's go get this guy and fuck him up and brainwash him for 3 days. Whatever. So that's just the Navy.
Cool.
There's also, so the Army on their website also put at one point that they had weaponized the microwave auditory effect, which it said non-lethal weapon, which includes one neuroelectromagnetic device, which uses microwave transmission of sound into the skull of persons or animals by way of pulse-modulated microwave radiation, and two, a silent sound device, which can transmit sound into the skull of person or animals. It said, note, the sound modulation may be voice or audio subliminal messages. One application of V2K is used as an electronic scarecrow to frighten birds in the vicinity of airports.
What?
Yeah, so that's just like something. So they're just, I guess, I don't know why they. So what they're saying is they have devices that can subliminally send you messages. Okay,
sure.
And they're already being used to get birds away from airports, basically.
Sure.
And then the last example of this kind of stuff possibly still being, of course, done and studied. Well, we talked about last time about how they were using remote electronics to get people and animals to do certain things or move certain ways.
Right.
So what I'm thinking about, what they were experimenting on back in the day, saying it's an experiment implies that you have a hypothesis and you're testing that hypothesis. They worked on that for almost 2 decades, and by that point, they likely developed the ways to be able to put these experiments into action.
Right.
And they don't need to experiment them as much because they're actually just using them all over.
Yeah.
So, that's what I feel about it, is like, well, yeah, it's probably still going on in a lot of really insidious ways, like through the news and just commercials and whatever else. But yeah, like, of course they're still doing some way, like they're still perfecting it or finding more easily applicable ways to put this into use and all sorts of stuff, like, I'm sure.
Okay.
So when it comes down to it, there's obviously a lot left to be told regarding not only MK Ultra, but the depths to which our government will go to create ways to gain power. What we're to believe about the MK Ultra situation is that all of the documents for this project have been destroyed except for this one little box, the financial records, which happen to be sent to a different location than all the rest that we will never be able to know the truth about.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's true, or maybe this was done in order to placate the people who care enough to look into the matter and have us focus on the seemingly horrible shit that they did on witting and unwitting citizens regarding LSD and mind control. But obviously, there's a lot more to this, and it goes a lot deeper than just the LSD and the mind control stuff that we have spoken about.
It's interesting because while I was reading into the monarch butterfly, which, again, the whole goal was to just abuse people into, having to create split personalities to deal with the trauma. But I came across that the origins of this date back to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, because they had used certain things to try to gain control over someone's mind, which they used potions, which would equate to today's use of drugs. Mm-hmm. They used spell casting, which would equate to hypnosis.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And demon possession, which the thing behind that would be a subject being animated by an outside force.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right.
Maybe they got their inspo from the Necronomicon or something.
Maybe there's just a long line of immortal rulers of the world.
Yeah, they're just all lizard people.
I guess there is truth to this lizard people thing. maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. I cannot advocate some of that stuff. I cannot. I'm not getting in. I'm like, we're not getting into fluoride, and we're not really getting into lizard people. Not legitimately. I'm not going to hear.
Oh, come on.
Not right now. No, I can't. So, when we really think about what the truly horrifying stuff was that they were doing here, I feel it was the experimentation that was going on with you and Cameron, the psychological manipulation, creating trauma that broke down a person's personality into multiple alter personalities that can be programmed and triggered to perform specific tasks. And that is just what we know from the very small fraction of what they have given us. That is truly the worst thing. Well, I mean, obviously, if they were sexually abusing people and, but this is that's part of trauma.
Right.
So, this is the worst of the worst, and I'm truly, maybe we don't even want to know what the really bad stuff is that they were doing, but we saw from the limited documents that they released that the CIA was very careful to place more sensitive projects under the umbrella of other projects to fund them in a way that they would not have to describe the research to any sort of oversight committee. And so when they stated that they were no longer conducting the project MK Ultra, they were probably not lying, but it's entirely within the realm of imagination that they kind of carried over the more gruesome experiments that they conducted into other projects that they now created to put these projects under the umbrella of yet another project, one that we don't know about, has a different name. I know it became MK Search after MK Ultra and then something else, and then they claimed it stopped altogether. But I'm sure just the way that they covertly created projects simply to fund projects they didn't want to explain. But either way, they were just doing all this stuff in order to not have to disclose all the information regarding the projects that they were carrying out. So when I poured through all 149 or whatever of these sub-projects, some of them literally just said, put in place in order to build a secret facility, or put in place in order to fund a project that the details are too sensitive to disclose to an outside source. So it was like, here, create this project so that we can get money to pay for us molesting kids on LSD,
Right.
That said, so obviously they are perhaps more careful about the way that they leave a paper trail and kind of prevent people from discovering what they're doing to this day.
Right.
Like I said, this project was the CIA conducting experiments, something that implies that there's a hypothesis and a science involved, and successes and failures, and by this point, 60 plus years later, it's likely that whatever conclusions that they found from their nearly 2 decades of experimentation have been put in action or are still being put in action, and it's more advanced than we really would even begin to know. We're 60 years behind based off what we're reading. So we're kind of like looking at outdated information here.
Well, I have some examples of what people think, like certain movies and whatnot that people think the government's using to set off the sleeper cells, essentially.
Okay.
So the number one.
Okay.
was the Wizard of Oz.
Oh.
They think it was created and used as a way to set off the triggers in these certain subjects. A lot of the imagery was what was going to make the personalities come out and carry out certain tasks.
Okay.
And these people were trained in a way by these people had handlers, which is so creepy to me because that's like what a dog has as a handler.
Or a
master.
Yeah, a sex worker.
Yeah.
It's essentially,
Alice in Wonderland, which, that whole cartoon is just an LSD trip, right?
Dude, I'll tell you, can I just tell you one little anecdote? It's not going to be good. It doesn't look favorably upon me. But when I was 16 and I was going to raves, so there was this place in Fort Worth called Ridgely Theater, and it was like a small little theater where people, like, bands would play and stuff. Like, it closed soon. There was like an age where that little theater thing was a thing, and then it passed. But it was so much fun. Anyway, so, and I was on ecstasy. And so they were playing Alice in Wonderland while they were playing,
oh my gosh,
whatever. And it was truly mind-blowing.
Really?
I wasn't even tripping, but I was like, what is happening? It was just so crazy to watch. So I can only imagine. I'm sorry.
No,
that
it's
was
just
a real side note.
I feel like as an adult, when you watch that movie, you're like, is this even for kids? Because no, it's not. Lewis Carroll, so no. But they were saying how the caterpillar's transformation into the butterfly represents the way that these test subjects were transformed into something different, the butterfly. And the reason why they chose the monarch butterfly is because they are so deeply ingrained genetically to just carry out this task, which is to migrate, and their migration period lasts a lot longer than their actual lifespan. So their offspring that are born along the way, they just continue on the journey. They without skipping a beat. So what better thing to represent just beating something into someone's brain to where they will carry out this task at all costs.
Right.
And I've never heard of Ladytron. Maybe I'm not cool enough, but
the band?
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
That's weird. Really? You
Yeah.
have.
No, I swear I haven't.
Well, I'm sure you must have heard. You've heard them before. I'll find.
Maybe if I heard a song.
Okay.
So she has a song called White Elephant where in the video they're all wearing butterfly masks and there's a bunch of shattered mirrors which would represent the split personality of traumatized subjects, kind of destroying their split personality.
Okay.
So we got to think, what other programs are we subjecting ourselves to that not are going to trigger split personalities? Because I don't know anyone that I'm like, oh, they probably were a subject of CIA.
Right.
Traumatizing. But just everything we watch and put into our brains is going to have some sort of side effect, whether that's negative or positive.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these programs that come out are a way to desensitize us to whatever is coming in the near future. Not saying like, oh, we're all going to be destroyed and the government wants our butts, but
they don't want our butts. They want our tots.
They want our tots. So I don't know. Just, limit your time on the social meds.
Oh, hell. Here we go, everybody.
Wear your tinfoil hats.
Hear ye.
Oh, I thought you were holding your phone up with your foot.
Shy has a directive for the masses. Get off social media, even though I'm on it.
Get off your social media.
Okay. Anyway. Okay, so my question about that is, what in the world evidence do these people have about these movies? None?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any.
Okay, so somebody's watching these, they're on LSD, and they're like, this is definitely an MK Ultra
video.
Man. And I need some proof, man. I just need some proof. Because I saw just, randomly it would pop up that Radiohead was a was an MK Ultra operative band because of their lyrics and all this stuff, and I was like, huh? I mean, I can understand kind of like the general trance-like vibe that they give off, I think, but other than that,
right.
I think, again, you're stoned and trying to read too much into some music, lady or man, whatever.
Well, I guess you could say that about a few bands, like Tool. Tool is weird. Yeah. Tool creeps me out. I don't listen to Tool.
Tool is weird. I can see that you wouldn't listen to Tool. I can see that.
They creep me out.
Do they?
But do I think
what do
that
you mean, exactly?
They were some sort of, they're just scary. Like I've watched one of their videos and their music is very, I wouldn't say it was trance-like, but it's very invoking of certain feelings, I feel, and it's not happy.
Well, you might be right, but I don't know if I restrict myself to happy music only.
Well, I was gonna say neither is my trap music, but at least
But at least it's, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that listen to Tool, and they're gonna be like, listen, lady, I'm happy. I just don't have to listen to happy music.
If you listen to Tool, I'm not trying to say you're unhappy. They creep me out.
Okay. Well, I can say that listening to A Perfect Circle when I was a young teen got me feeling some type of way. I'll tell you that. I was like, fuck this! Fuck all this! That's some type of way I mean, not the other way.
For a while I was into The Used and My Chemical Romance. Like, if I a depressed person, I don't know. I can't. I think I
think we can listen to stuff that doesn't necessarily reflect upon our mood,
Yeah.
But anyway, so I thought that was interesting.
Huh. I guess I never got into Radiohead though.
Oh,
so.
I did for a brief moment not a brief moment, for quite a while when I was in high school, because I had the hugest crush on this guy. Oh, it was one of the, it's terrible to say this, but it was one of the only people I've ever liked that didn't like me back. You know, when that happens, it's like,
Aww. And then you guys break up without breaking up, and it's so
'cause,
heartbreaking.
in the high school you're just hanging out, you think, he loves me. Well, he's gotta just love the fuck out of me. You know, he's totally in love with me. And because I'm hanging out with him all the time. Otherwise, why would he want to hang out with all the time? But, and then he didn't, and I was truly heartbroken. And he gave me, though, that's what the point of this, the point of this was, he gave me a CD of Radiohead songs, and I just listened to that thing for quite some time. But man, that is some stoner music right there. Like, you know, it's even past me. You know, I'm like, oh, I don't want to listen to that. I'm gonna fall asleep. I have to be in a real kind of mood to be like, yeah, I'm gonna listen to that.
They're the ones that do the "I'm a Creep" song, right?
Yeah, like the worst song. But yeah, the one.
Yeah, okay. That song is so boring.
The worst of their entire collection is that song.
But it's their most popular one.
It is apparently also the most popular song to kill yourself to.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Maybe. They are a CIA operative band. And they and it triggers people. Don't listen to Radiohead. This is your warning.
Well, geez, I mean, okay, this is a conspiracy corner.
Conspiracy corner.
So it's probably not true, but maybe Radiohead is a MK Ultra operative or CIA operative trying to get us all to kill ourselves. See, the thing is, all of this stuff is okay for anybody to consume, but the problem lies when somebody is in a compromising position or is extremely suggestible, because that's you know, their goal in these experiments was to get these people as, you know, suggestible is a mild term to use, but quote unquote suggestible AF, so that they can just do whatever they want with them. So, you know, it's like, would these operatives just be going after the most vulnerable? And then, you know, sure, 1 billion people can listen to Radiohead, but, you know, 10,000 of them are going to be suggestible enough to kill themselves. But what do they get out of them killing themselves? Nothing.
Right.
That's not true. That's a bunk conspiracy anyway. Okay. I'm just going to have a little tirade. Taking into consideration everything that we have discussed in these past 2 episodes, I feel it would be naive to think that we're not being manipulated and controlled at all through various outlets and, you know, much of it, the media. Why does my voice sound like I'm Katharine Hepburn, like post-stroke?
Oh,
my throat's so scratchy feeling. So, you know, just in the past few years, there have been people who attempted to expose government secrets through their positions as independent journalists. 2 of the most well-known ones are Julian Assange and Edward Snowden.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Both now living in they're both living in foreign countries under their right of asylum, and this is because the disclosure of the government information that they release to the public that has left them essentially enemies of the state.
Right.
So, you know, a lot of this, I was telling you earlier, so really goes off on a totally different subject, but it's just releasing this kind of information to the public isn't looked upon so favorably. And Edward Snowden released a bunch of information that there was all this wide-scale surveillance going on, and how with his position as like a computer programmer, as a, you know, what is it called whenever you're you don't actually work for the CIA.
Oh, you're a contractor.
As a contractor, yeah. As a contractor for the CIA, in doing computer programming, he was very easily able, with just having someone's email address, very easily able to hack into something of theirs and wiretap them. So it was like very, you know, bizarre stuff that you wouldn't really think would be possible. But essentially, we could all be followed in everything we say to every single person we've ever said it to.
Well, is it untrue? Our phones, our computers, now our TVs have cameras in them. They're putting cameras on every flight chair or something.
I'm less worried about cameras as I am about recording devices, or just giant data files of text and voice messages and all sorts of things that could be used to get you, if you have any getches.
Because, I mean, hosting a podcast, you talk about a lot of things that people typically don't. Like, oh, if I were to hide a body, I'd do it this way. Don't use that against me. I'm never gonna hide a body, guys. You guys, I was just joking.
JK.
JK. I'm not hiding bodies.
We're just normal girls.
Just normal gals.
So there was also another well, I don't even know if I need to really bring it up. I'm going to bring it up anyway. There was this journalist named Michael Hastings who exposed the then U.S. Army General Stanley McChrystal for being contemptuous of essentially everyone but other military officials, and he was subsequently, because of his article, released of his command. This man also, Michael Hastings, the journalist, denounced Obama's foreign policy and was being investigated by the FBI. He died in a fiery one-car collision shortly after emailing his colleagues that he was chasing a big story and was under investigation by the FBI. I just wanted to include that because I'm like, let's just keep in mind, I mean, it's so totally, I guess, off the wall. I guess I don't really know if I need to include that stuff, but it's just kind of me going, listen, this is the kind of stuff that happens when you try to, and I know that there are going to be some people saying that, like, Julian Assange and Edward Snowden were traitors and that if they compromised the safety of American citizens and they were in the wrong, which obviously, if that's the case, that's some sketchy territory where it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think you should compromise the safety of American citizens, but at the same time, do we not have the right to know if we're being surveilled, by our own government?
I think so.
So it's a hard, but anyway, I bring it up because I'm like, listen, this stuff is going on. I am tits deep in government conspiracies and people being murdered whenever they've been trying to expose it. Like, I think we've both gone down some rabbit holes recently that
oh god,
I'm like, let's just get going. We're gonna get killed this year, but let's do it. Like
we're getting killed.
The CIA is gonna kill us, but if I can go out bringing stories that you can learn some things about the world and open your eyes, people.
Yeah, don't be a bunch of sheep.
But I don't want to be one of those people because the people that say that a lot
tend
to be crazy.
We're not Alex Jones.
Yeah, we're not prayer warriors for Christ or whatever.
Oh God!
Which
open clouds are vessels for demons.
Clouds are what did it say? Vessels? Clouds are
like they were dropping demons or something. Yeah,
like transportation vessels for demons, and like the chemical trails left behind by planes that's just demons, just like skydiving right out of that plane.
Sure.
Oh my gosh,
sure.
Dude. Anyway, so it starts to kind of remind me of that kind of guy whenever we start getting to wake up people type of stuff. So I don't want to say wake up sheeple. I just want to say some of this stuff, if you really want to go around living your life pretending like this stuff doesn't happen and everything's hunky-dory and you're just happy that way, then that's fine. But, if you're somebody like us that's like, I've got to get to the bottom of this.
Just do some reading.
Yeah. Just do some reading. Or you can just wait for us to tell you more.
Or release the episode.
Yeah. Also, if there are any little conspiracies that you yourself are curious about and you're thinking, I wish I knew more if so-and-so is going on, let us know at creepitrealpod@gmail.com. You can tell us topics that we can look into for future episodes. I know that I have gotten a couple recently that I've been thinking, okay, this is a good one. We've gotten so many requests for Casey Anthony, and I want to say, no, man, like it's been done to death. But so because of that, I've decided that we are going to do it, but it's going to go on Patreon. And so if you want to listen to Casey Anthony, then you're going to have to sign up for our Patreon.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen for a little bit. So, okay. So this will be where we stop on MK Ultra for now. It might be where we stop forever because there might just be other ongoing things to look into. So thanks for joining us. It's been real.
Yeah, I like this type of stuff. This is fun to research.
This it's horrifying. Don't get me wrong, but it's way, way more of a emotion. It takes way less of an emotional toil. Is that
emotional toilet?
No, it takes way less out of me emotionally than, just tons of murdered and missing peoples. But we still have to do murdered and missing peoples too. So
we do. Anyway,
give us more, I've looked into it, but I want more projects and conspiracies to look into. Because I'm not gonna do totally, I don't know, maybe we will. Sometimes we'll do totally crazy ones, like, what's it called?
Like the moon landing?
No, like your favorite, the Dolce facility. Like that one's pretty, that one's pretty crazy, but it's still funny and that one's pretty fun. We've been saying that we're gonna do that one for a while. Okay.
We should do a Dolce facility costume party.
Okay, a live costume party or what?
No, I don't know. I'll have to see what kind of critters are supposedly crawling around there.
Where?
At
Oh,
the
Dolce.
Dolce.
Are you saying?
Yeah.
Are you Dolce? Dolce.
Is
Which
it?
one is
I
it?
don't know what it is. I don't know.
Well,
It's whatever you want it to be.
are you saying when I visit, or are you just?
No,
Oh,
just in general.
well, okay. I don't know how. I really don't think we're gonna be able to get enough people to dress up and go sit on a Instagram live together.
They're lame.
I don't know. I don't know if I would do it either. It'd just be you. It would just be you sitting there with your fucking alien costume.
Not mad. Oh, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So the government back on. Did we already stop the show?
I don't know. Did we?
I think we did, but yeah, the government sucks. They suck. That's the general consensus. Okay. The meeting, the second meeting of the Burn It All Down crew is adjourned.
Adjourned. Y'all, stay
I wanted to
creepy
hammer-
out there.
I wanted to hammer something. Yeah, stay creepy out there. Also, real quick though, I wanted to say again, everybody that listens to the show, look, I see it every week. Our numbers are going up as far as the amount of listeners that we have. Little by little, it's happening, and that's awesome. And we love you and appreciate you. And people keep sending us messages saying that we're amazing and we're one of their favorite podcasts ever. I love you, but also
Thank you.
come follow us on Instagram at creeperrealpod. Send us an email at creeperrealpod@gmail.com.
Yes.
Our personal Instagrams are listed on the pod page, so if you go there, you can also see those if you want. I don't know if yours is open, but whatever. And yeah, send us some stuff. Not literal stuff, but just email us. Tell us nice things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway.
You're rolling your eyes. Yeah.
No.
Okay, so thanks for listening, everybody. We love you. We'll see you soon with we already have our next episode planned out with our pals over at the Bumblebutt podcast. So, okay.
Jesus.
See you soon.